There's always something to worry about. This is the difference. This is what happens in the stock market. Because, see, everybody's got the brain power to do well in the stock market. The question is whether you have the stomach for it. That's the key organ in the body. There's always something to worry about. I went to school, grew up with a kid in the 50s. In the decade of the 50s, there's this big theory that the Depression was caused by a stock market crash. Totally wrong. Less than 1% of Americans owned stocks in '29. We had this big-time recession. In fact, it was a depression. It wasn't caused by the stock market. The economy went down, the Federal Reserve raised interest rates, and we had a big-time depression. In fact, we had several depressions like that from 1850 on. This was only one of about 8 depressions since 1850. But people thought the only reason we got out of the depression was World War II, and they said, once we get back, next time we have a recession, we're going to have a depression. And it's going to be a Great Depression. I never understood that adjective in front of depression. It ought to be crummy depression or bad depression, but it was always Great Depression. I never quite understood that one. So people weren't buying stocks in the 50s because they thought that another Great Depression was going to happen. Doesn't seem to work out that way, you know. And I remember in the 50s, I remember literally in classes, I was in elementary school in the 50s, and they would come in, they'd have one of these air raid drills. Somebody with a yellow hat would come in, they'd blow a whistle, and you'd get under your desk. Even then I says, I don't think this is going to do a lot of good, you know. But people were worried about a depression and nuclear war in the 50s. There's always something to worry about. In the 50s, it was depression and nuclear war. The 50s was the best decade this century for the stock market, except for the 80s. Only slightly better. The 80s were only slightly better. And the stock market was terrific. Do you remember when oil went from 4 to 40? Remember that period? Oil went from 4 to 40, and the experts said it was going to go to 100, and all the countries of the world were going to go bankrupt. And then the big banks are going to go bankrupt, and we're going to have a Great Depression, and the stock market's going to go down, and you're going to wind up selling pencils and apples. You know, well, I remember when oil went from 4 to 40, and the experts said it was going to go to 100. Within 2 years, oil was at 14. The experts, now much higher paid at this point, are saying it's going to go to 4, and we're going to have a depression. And people believed it again, you know.